Let's look at the word meaning of the word person as per Wikipedia. A person, persons or people from Latin persona meaning mask, is a being such as a human that has certain capacities or attributes constituting personhood, the precise definition of which is the subject of much controversy. In ancient Rome, the word persona, or Latin prosopon, originally referred to the masks worn by actors on stage. The various masks represent the various personae in the stage play, while the masks themselves help the actor's voice resonate and make it easier for the audience to hear. In Roman law, the word persona became and used to refer to a role played in court, and it became established that it was the role rather than the actor that could have rights, powers, and duties, because different individuals could assume the same roles. The rights, powers, and duties followed the role rather than the actor, and each individual could act in more than one role, each a different person in law. Therefore, your persona has the rights and powers. The Homo sapien, the living man and woman, does not have the rights. It is your persona that has the rights. Do you understand? They, which is you, has taken all the rights away from yourselves. You are hence slaves. Understand? As I indicated to you in earlier Umbrella Walk videos, the Homo sapien has developed a sexually deviant world where your commercial world is about courtship. Meanwhile, the Romans and the Indo-Europeans have created a persona for each to enslave each. They define it for you in the language they have created for you. In Roman law, the word persona is referred to as a role played in court, court referring to a physical court or courtship, the dance between two persons. And the truth is that you, the Homo sapien, is a persona who's always in court, in the world of courtship, in the world of mixing your genes. So if you can benefit and control, your leaders, the Queen of England, your popes, including Pope Benedict XVI, is involved in the deception so that they can control and enslave. The creation of the third person is the requirement for the enslavement to perpetuate themselves. Please note that the third person acts on them also, and therefore they have enslaved themselves. So you can see your queen, your pope, is not all that happy with their own enslavement. The connections between each Homo sapien, the links, is what is needed to create the second and third persons, to create the persona, the person that is a mask. The strings, the connections get the first and second person to dance, to connect, to hurt, to love, a love that is a fictional, shallow love, to attack, to kill, to eat, and to drink, and to entertain. In essence, you, the animal, the Homo sapien, can do little now without the third person watching and controlling. You have submitted to the persona many, many generations ago. Let's look at the meaning of first person, second person, third person as per Wikipedia. First person perspective, a technique used in media, primarily video games, where all action is seen as if through the eyes of the character in the story. First-person narrative is a narrative device where the narrator is speaking for and about themselves. Since the world of the Homo sapien is fiction, let us look at the first-person definition in relation to video games, as each Homo sapien is on a puppet string and then inserted into the video game called Mother Earth. In video games, first person refers to a graphical perspective rendered from the viewpoint of the player character. In many cases, this may be the viewpoint from the cockpit of a vehicle. Many different genres have made use of first-person perspectives, ranging from adventure games to flight simulators. Perhaps the most notable genre to make use of this device is the first-person shooter, where the graphical perspective has an immense impact on gameplay. So what does all this mean? Let me explain. It is obvious that when only a first person is acting with little resistance on the actions or desires of the first person as the shooter will have an immense impact on the gameplay. Meaning if only you are in the room, you will have a tremendous impact on your surroundings. Understand? This results in very little control being rendered by the game makers, the puppeteers, the secret society members, the corporate elite. These game makers I refer to need something to interact with you in the room to control you, to make a greater persona for their use to create a greater mask, so that they can take you further from the truth and therefore you will be more useful for them and thus a better slave. Meanwhile, you also have the super elite who watch the video game called Mother Earth, shaking their heads in amazement at your uncontrollable thirst or hunger, which fuels the insanity of it all. Let's get back to the room with the first person. Such games with a first person perspective are usually avatar based, when the game displays what the player's avatar would see with the avatar's own eyes. Thus, players typically cannot see the avatar's body, though they may be able to see the avatar's weapons or hands. This viewpoint is also frequently used to represent the perspective of a driver within a vehicle, as in flight and racing simulators, and is common to make use of positional audio where the volume of ambient sounds varies depending on their position with respect to the player's avatar. Games with a first-person perspective do not require sophisticated animations for the player's avatar, nor do they need to implement a manual or automated camera control scheme as in third-person perspective. A first-person perspective allows for easier aiming since there's no representation of the avatar to block the player's view. Here is the important statement from Wikipedia from the video game perspective. Listen, please. However, the absence of an avatar can make it difficult to master the timing and distances required to jump between platforms may cause motion sickness in some players. Players have come to expect first-person games to accurately scale objects to approximate sizes. However, key objects such as dropped items or levers may be exaggerated in order to improve their visibility. Please keep this in mind. Now let's move to the definition of second person as per Wikipedia. The second person narrative is a narrative mode in which the protagonist or another main characters are referred to by employment of second person personal pronouns and other kinds of addressing forms. For example, the English second person pronoun you. In the video game terminology, it is a second person point of view. The action is shot from the perspective of a character who's not the protagonist. To qualify, the player must continue being in control of the protagonist but see action through the eyes of another character which he cannot interact with. The concept of the second person perspective can take two meanings depending on where it is used. In literature, second person perspective is characterized by the use of second person pronouns such as you. This perspective is used when the main character is the person reading the book or playing the game. Perhaps this perspective's best known use is in choose your own adventure games and tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. The important point to take from this is this: the use of second person perspective can help players feel as if they are actually the character they are controlling. It gives you an ego boost, a euphoria which results in an addiction to expand the second person role. Hence, the Homo sapien persona is an addict. The Homo sapien in the form of a person is an addict. In the video game Mother Earth, created by the Homo sapien, I vary the second person view to include a second person who, through the string, controls the first person, hence seeing the first person through the second person. Note that an interaction between one Homo sapien and another Homo sapien can only be in the first person mode if there's no games being played, no strings to the relationship. Since in the current Mother Earth world there's always a string between two personas due to the actions of the third person who always pulls on the two persons. There's always a string and always a relationship. Only when there are two or more Homo sapiens acting can higher level games be played. Hence both Homo sapiens can be aware that they are operating in the second person mode, meaning each can think that they're actually the character they are controlling, that they control their own actions. But this is not true. The second person controls some of your actions. It is because you are in second person mode, your vision is not as clear as in first person mode, Therefore, you may not be in control of you, as you are also being acted upon by the second Homo sapien, a second persona, a second mask. And thus I say that both persons are in the second person mode. Note that if one of the Homo sapiens is in the second person mode, if he does not realize the world that Mother Earth is fiction, that Mother Earth is only a video game, then that Homo sapien who thinks he is a free Homo sapien rather than a first person having a second person acting upon him, he can then be held hostage in a situation, and scenarios or games without his knowledge can be inflicted upon him, and thus effectively enslaving him by the knowledgeable second person in the room who is acting upon the room. This is the situation with tortured children who are being deceived of the truth by the ones who are thirsting or hungry. Second person narrative mode is often paired with the first person narrative mode, in which the narrator makes emotional comparisons between the thoughts, action, and feelings of you versus I. The second person point of view is intended to create an intense sense of intimacy between the narrator and the reader, causing the reader to feel implicit in and powerless against a plot that leads them blindly through the reader's and the narrator's own destruction and redemption. So to provide a synopsis, each Homo sapien as it moves around the planet Earth, observing and taking actions without input from another second person, is acting in the first person mode only, but is still a persona, a Babylon babbling in first person mode. However, there's no second person to block its view, and therefore the Homo sapien can accurately maneuver around objects and approximate problems or obstacles. The Homo sapien in only its first person may, however, exaggerate its accuracy or drop certain key information to maximize benefits for itself. This is what occurs in a world where personas act as first persons only. Hence, the creation of an uncontrolled ego is a byproduct in the first person only environment. This provides an excuse to the governing elite for the creation of the second person to control the first person. Do you understand? Mother Earth, the video game, has been created for the personas, for the mass, for the Homo sapiens, to control each other because they are not responsible. Dear slaves, I am the witness to your irresponsibility, 40 plus years of the torturing of a child for your benefit when the truth was always known. Let's look at Wikipedia. Let's look at the third person view. Third person view. Third person narration provides the greatest flexibility to the author and thus the most commonly used narrative mode in literature. In the third person narrative mode, each and every character is referred to by the narrator as he, she, it, or they, but never as I or we, which is first person, or you, which is second person. In third person narrative, it is obvious that the narrator be merely an unspecified entity or uninvolved person that conveys the story, but not a character of any kind within the story being told. This is a tale told from the point of view of a storyteller who plays no part in the story but knows all the facts, including the character's thoughts. I repeat, the third person view or persona is a tale told from the point of view of a storyteller who plays no part in the story but knows all the facts, including the character's thoughts. It is controlled from a higher level, not seen by the first or second person. Now let's discuss third person view in video games as per Wikipedia. These games are closely related to first person shooters, which also tie the perspective of the player to an avatar, but the two genres are distinct. While the first person perspective allows players to aim and shoot without their avatar blocking their view, the third person shooter shows the protagonist from an over the shoulder shot or behind the back perspective,